Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 203rd installment in the Torah portion of the week. We are holding by Parshas Vayigash. Again, Parshas Vayigash, like many parshas in the book of Genesis, an absolute packed parsha. Talks about Yosef telling the brothers that he's actually Yosef, and they almost faint. Right? They can't believe it's Yosef, the one who's in charge of Egypt. And he wants to go see his father, so he sends his brothers off with gifts to go see his father, etc. So the Torah tells me at the end of the parsha, chapter 47, verse 27, Torah tells me that Israel settled the land of Egypt in the region of Goshen. They acquired property in it, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly. So first thing is, they lived in the lands of Goshen. Right? So it was set up as a separate entity. I mentioned in a previous video that Yehuda goes down in order to set up yeshivas, set up schools. Right? You move into a community, or you want to bring Jews into a community, you have to have an infrastructure. So he goes down to Goshen, etc., and start up that community, make sure there are schools, etc., and all the amenities that they need to lead a Jewish life. We see what happened in America, that there was no infrastructure. It took a long time for Jewish infrastructure to be set up. We're talking about after World War II. And the community is really flourishing, right, in so many ways. But the beginning, certainly the beginning of the 20th century was not like that. People thought that Orthodoxy would disappear. Orthodoxy would just, go by the wayside. But we see that obviously didn't happen. So over here, the Torah tells me that they acquired property. Right? They acquired property. So what does this mean exactly? So it says, Mor v'Rebbe, Harav Agon Moshe Sternbuch Shlita, should be well, brings down in his commentary on Chumash and Chochmah V'das, and he says what's going on. What does it mean over here that they acquired property? So he says that the intention is that really they went down to Egypt. They weren't expecting to be there a long time. Right? They only went down. Why did they go down? So the Torah tells me they went down very simply. There was a famine. Right? They had no food. So everybody trekked down there because they had no food. And what was the goal? The goal was, okay, there's food in Egypt. Let's go get the food, and then we'll go home. Then we'll go back to the land of Israel. Their intention was never to stay there. But it says, Torah tells me, they acquired property. That means that they were going to be there for a while. Now, if you tell me they're only going to live in shacks, they're going to live, in caravans, very temporary, makes sense. Because then you see what their ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is get back home. To show I'm not going to be there. I have no intention of staying. But here, since they acquired property, what did it show? They're there for the long term. And this is the reason my Rebbe says we're in such a long gulf. We're in such a long exile. That you got the non-Jews are jealous. Until they want to throw us out. Because, exile's been good in a certain way. It's been good for the Jewish people in the sense that some places they went, they're very successful. Plenty of money. Had fame and all kinds of things. They felt comfortable. So, once a person starts to acquire property, Once a person starts to have roots in such a place, right? Build roots, really. Then it's very hard to want to get up and leave. Because even if a person wants to leave, a person's got property. Things you got to get rid of. Right? You can't just get up and leave. So it's much harder. So once a person starts acquiring property, very difficult to leave. So Rebbe says we see this even today. Right? We see by the Jews of Germany. The Jews of Germany thought they owned the place. They lived there, they thought the land was theirs. So they thought themselves like good German citizens. Certainly to live there, have children there. And what ended up happening? They ended up assimilating. Taking off the yoke of heaven. Which ultimately led to their destruction. Which they couldn't understand. Because Hitler, Yamach Shemoy V'Zichroi, may his name be blotted out, may he rot. He didn't care what type of Jew you were. All he cared about was you had Jewish blood. Didn't matter if you were really Jewish or not. So they couldn't understand why they're being singled out. Secular Jews would say, take the religious Jews. We're like you. Fought in your wars. We eat your food. Married your women. Went to university. Watched the ball games. Did all these things. So what do they think? What do they ultimately think? The Rebbe says they made a fundamental mistake. And that is that the more they're going to get close to the non-Jews, that's going to help them. And the reality is just the opposite. The closer we get to the non-Jews, they want to show us we don't belong. They don't want us to intermarry with them. They don't want us to be part of politics and all that. Whether it's in Germany, whether it's in America, any other place. Because we want to be like them. But in order to be like them, the end result's going to be catastrophic. I mean, a person could be successful, could be in politics, could have plenty of money. But what about his Yiddishkeit? What about his Judaism? Where is he holding? Right? He's too busy hobnobbing. He's too busy, making money and more money and assimilating. So that's been an absolute disaster. So the Jews can never think, and this is really what the point is that the Jews can never think, I can be so comfortable in exile. That living in the nation wherever you live, that's the ultimate. Forget about Torah. Forget about mitzvahs. Forget about everything you know to be sacred. That's going to go by the wayside. Because what's really important? What's the real world? How do we define success? The holy dollar. Not worth so much in some places. Right? But that's what it is. That's success. How far we can go up. Corporate ladder. How to show the non-Jews just like them. It's interesting. Someone pointed out to me a video of an Israeli basketball player in the NBA. And what the video show? The video showed it was somebody's birthday. And they're singing happy birthday in Hebrew. Right? So, everyone's happy, everyone's clapping. His teammates are clapping. So you say, well, it's very cute. You got these basketball players listening to someone singing happy birthday in Hebrew. Can't even tell you what a moving experience it was. But what's wrong with this picture? Because you're saying, okay, I'm still proud of my Jewishness. I speak Hebrew. So let me show my teammates how I can sing happy birthday in Hebrew. I don't know. It did not evoke my Jewish pride. It made me say that everything's wrong with this picture. Because basically what you're doing is you're putting your assimilated self and assimilating more into American culture. You want acceptance. Good, you have acceptance on the court. If you're good enough. But it's like a trinket over here. It's part of my culture. So you're showing your fellow players my culture. Is there anything really wrong with that? And the idea is you want to melt in. You want to be accepted. So I wonder why someone else down the line, every single player on their birthday is going to sing happy birthday in Hebrew. I bet God's very proud. He's telling the angels, look, Nachas, look at my enjoyment of my creation. The chosen Jewish people. And this guy's shooting a basketball. He may be good, not saying not. Values are skewed. Showing I can be just like you. I can also add to the culture. What does that have to do with the soul? Nothing. Should be bowing down to the fact somebody like this can sing, happy birthday in Hebrew in a basketball court. My language not very impressive. That leads to assimilation. You say, how much more assimilated could it be? He's already assimilated, okay? There are different levels. But the end result, as my Rebbe here points out, is the opposite of what you're trying to do. You want to draw close. Right? That's what the Greeks wanted. They wanted the Jews to draw close. Okay, they made some decrees. But the essence of what they wanted was the Jews to give up their Judaism. Or at least do it in their house, be like everyone else outside. I.e. assimilate. That's what they wanted. And the end result is catastrophic. Because we say over here, getting close to the nations, they think is going to benefit them. Getting close to the nations means I lose my identity as a Jew. You lose your identity as a Jew, doesn't matter, the cardiac Jew, whatever, But you lose that identity, you lose Judaism. Your Judaism will disappear. You give a lip service. To your kids, you give even less than lip service. To their kids, they won't even give them lip service. The game's over. It doesn't work. Something like this, a feeling, I don't care how strong it is, cannot be perpetuated. So the Jews in Germany, we can say America, we see other places, the more they assimilate, the more they think everything's going to be good. But we know any place they assimilate, it was a disaster. A spiritual disaster. And the more assimilation, the more people will be spiritually cut off. So what you see right now, and over the last 50, 60 years, is the cleansing process. So when the Messiah comes, he's going to know clear as day who's Jewish and who really isn't. People are being wiped off the face of the map. Spiritually. But they don't understand that the culture around them can spit them out. Because we see more often Jews successful in a certain country, what happens? They get spit out. There are pogroms. Right? And the secular Jews are dumbfounded. Why should this happen? We're exactly like you. We do what you do. We watch your ball games. We fight in your wars. We eat your food. Why is it you still hate us? Because God's making a point. God's saying, you Jews, you don't make Kiddush Friday night on Shabbos. The non-Jews make Havdalah. They'll make separation, distinction. They'll remind you you're not Jewish. Sorry, that you are Jewish. And that reminder will come out in the form of anti-Semitism, which we're not lacking right now. Plenty of it out there. Because we're not upholding our end of the bargain. We want to be just like everybody else. That's the reason many fled and went to America. They didn't want religious persecution. So America's been the best place out of any place for religious freedom. There's no question about it. But it's coming at a price. That even though the yeshivas and girls' schools, they're expanding by leaps and bounds. Kashrus, shotnage, you got all these things, all these amenities. But we're losing the war. We're losing many more to assimilation. More than 20, 25 years ago, a study was done where Jewry was holding. And it came out that we're losing to assimilation into marriage like 35,000 people a year. So how many are we gaining by Bali Tshuva? Returnees to Judaism and converts? It's not an even swap. It's not like, oh, we're losing 35,000, we're gaining 40,000. Not even close. Be lucky if it's 1,000 a year, I'm being generous. So the Jewish people had a deficit. The only ones going to survive are religious Jews. The secular Jews cannot perpetuate to the next generation. It will not continue. It's an impossibility. There are synagogues going out of business. That's a recipe for disaster. So even in America, where they have the most religious freedom, There's a lot to be thankful for, no question about it. But it's come at a price. It's come at a very steep price. The very steep price is, look how many Jews you've lost. You've built up Judaism to an unbelievable level. True. Very, very true. But you've really lost more than you've gained. Because as much as you've gained, in 10 years you lose 350,000 Jews. You don't make that up. Even with the birth rate as high as it is, the numbers don't add up. They won't be the same. It doesn't offset. So my Rebbe here says, wherever we're living, it's temporary. You start building fancy homes, more than one home, that's not temporary. Something like that, it makes it impossible to leave because now you're entrenched. Now you build roots. So what am I going to do? Not everyone's going to come to the land of Israel. Probably many won't. There are many reasons why they can't come. Either livelihood, they have older parents, different things. So you say they will get entrenched. But that wasn't the point over here. The point over here was they weren't supposed to be entrenched. They weren't supposed to stay in Egypt in order to get stuck there. The goal was get in, get out. Do what you have to do and then move on. But they didn't do that. In Germany, they didn't do that. In other places, they didn't do that. And it's to their detriment. Because the non-Jews don't make us feel comfortable there. They intermarry. They get involved in politics. Do all kinds of things except what they're supposed to do. And they'll be our worst enemy because they're going to work hard to de-Jew us. What does it mean to de-Jew us? What it means is leave your Judaism at the door. You want to come, you want to be part of us, be normal. Forget about these old laws. Forget about kashrus, Shabbos, blessings, holidays. Be like everybody else. Be part of that melting pot. So what happens when you're part of that melting pot? My language, it's game over. Next stop, assimilation. Leave your Hebrew name at the door. Next thing you know, you'll be singing happy birthday in Hebrew amongst all these non-Jews. It's quaint, it's nice, proud, be able to do it in Hebrew. I don't think God and the angels are giving you a standing ovation. You're not going to come out of the clubhouse and tip your cap. Certainly not in quote unquote the real world. Because that's all that matters. Right? What I do, how I do things. What my purpose in life is. But it's not to get entrenched in society. And even if I have to live in a certain place, what's my focus on? Torah, mitzvahs, Doing whatever it takes to get close to God in the right way. Because everything else, there's a tremendous weight. There's a tremendous power of the secular world. And with that, it's going to tear a person apart spiritually. So as much as we've gained, with rights, and no religious persecution, so to speak, that's what they wanted. No yoke of heaven. No yoke of mitzvahs. I just want to live my life. Do what I want to do. So that we see is an absolute disaster. We have to remember the focus. The focus is whatever I do, I'm either going up in spiritual terms or I'm going down. God forbid. Is this good for me? Is it bad for me? I have to weigh everything I do. And even if I have a doubt it's bad for me, I shouldn't do it. We got to remember, wherever we live, we're still in exile. Even the land of Israel, we're still in exile. Pretty clear we're in exile. But I have to live my life as a Jew, or a Jew wannabe. Or even a non-Jew has to live his life the way he's supposed to. These are not easy things. But if a person wants spiritual success, this is the aleph base. Never ever feel comfortable where you live. That's not your home. Your real home is in the land of Israel, but you can't live there now. For any number of reasons. Right? I'll be generous. We'll give legitimate reasons. But a person should long to be there. A person should long even when they're working. When am I going to stop so I can go learn? How am I going to, find the time? You got to make time. You got to steal time. But it's about wanting to be great in Torah. And being great in Torah is to know things like this. To know how to answer. Takes dedication. Takes effort. Takes a heck of a lot of self-sacrifice. But the end result is worth it. Because you educate your kids in the proper way, that next generation flourishes. Flourishes. You don't, just the opposite. So there's really nothing in between. I look for it for a long time. This middle path doesn't exist. It's either you're all in or you're not. And if you're not, the end result, we understand what it is. Can't pass down a feeling. That Judaism will disappear, I promise. Believe that. Without a vow. It's pretty clear it'll disappear. If not 1 generation, 2 generations. You want to be the real deal, you got to do it. You got to put in the effort. And you got to work hard. You got to sweat. And the end result is going to be worth it, even if it's hard. Don't live in this world like it's the ultimate. We got to remember we're only here temporarily. We got to utilize whatever we're given for the sake of spirituality. So I want to remind everyone, I have a class, Duties of the Heart, every Tuesday, 9 o'clock New York time. We're in Duties of the Heart. We are speaking about repentance. We're in the gate of repentance. 2 Q&As. every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock New York time. Book of Leviticus every Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning New York time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Tanakh Talk every Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. I have conversion classes, Pirkei Avos every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. If anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.